The winter wind howled across the Carpathian foothills as dusk settled over the fortress of Sejte, a sprawl of black stone and flickering torches that seemed less like a castle than a creature crouched against the Transylvanian night. Inside its walls, the scent of pine smoke mingled with the metallic tang of snow, and a lone rider approached along a moonlit path. His name was Janos Kerek, a young court scribe summoned without explanation to the domain of Countess Erzsébet Bathory, a woman whose beauty and power had already become legend, and whose whispered reputation chilled even the most seasoned courtiers. Janos had copied edicts for governors and recorded births for bishops, but nothing prepared him for the uneasy hush that greeted him at the gates. Guards in fur-lined cloaks eyed him with a mixture of respect and barely disguised fear, as if the castle itself demanded silence. When the massive oak doors creaked open, a rush of warm air carried with it a faint perfume of crushed roses and something stranger, an undercurrent of iron that set his teeth on edge. They led him through corridors lit by hundreds of beeswax candles. Painted ceilings glimmered with gold leaf, and tapestries of battles and hunting scenes seemed to shift as the flames danced. At last, in a great hall crowned by a vaulted roof of blackened beams, he met her. Erzsébet Bathory stood beside a fire so large it could have roasted an ox, the light throwing sharp relief across her striking face. Dark hair cascaded over a crimson velvet gown embroidered with pearls. Her eyes, a startling green, held the glint of a mind that measured everything and forgot nothing. Though she could not have been more than 40, her skin was pale and flawless, and she moved with the easy command of someone born to rule. When she spoke, her Hungarian carried the lilt of a song. "Welcome, Master Kerek. I require a man who can write what must be written and keep what must be kept." Her smile was warm, but Janos felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. To understand how Erzsébet reached this moment of Gothic grandeur, one must look back to her birth in 1560, a time when the Habsburg and Ottoman empires wrestled for control of Eastern Europe and noble families guarded power with ruthless calculation. Born to one of Hungary's oldest dynasties, she was a prodigy, fluent in Latin and German by adolescence, adept in mathematics, politics, and the healing arts. Stories of her childhood hinted at both compassion and cruelty. She nursed sick peasants with herbs and whispered prayers, yet was rumored to watch public punishments with unsettling fascination. At 15, she married Count Ferenc Nadasdy, a soldier celebrated for his ferocity against the Turks. Their union joined two vast estates, making Erzsébet one of the most powerful women in the region. While Ferenc led campaigns, she managed thousands of acres, dispensing justice and overseeing trade. Those who served her spoke of a lady both brilliant and exacting, capable of kindness, yet intolerant of failure, but power and intellect did not shield her from grief. The marriage, though respectful, was often lonely. Ferenc's long absences left Erzsébet isolated in a castle that echoed with political intrigue and the superstitions of a land where science and sorcery blurred. When plague swept through the countryside, she studied medicine and alchemy, corresponding with scholars in Prague and Venice. She experimented with tinctures and elixirs, believing that nature's hidden properties could heal, or perhaps do more. Ferenc returned from war ill and battle-scarred, and in 1604 he died after a lingering sickness, leaving Erzsébet a widow at 44 with immense wealth, restless intelligence, and an aching fear of the slow decay she saw in the mirror. It was during this period of grief that a traveler arrived at Chete, a Florentine alchemist named Pietro da Luca. Charismatic and mysterious, Pietro claimed to have studied the lost arts of Egyptian priests and the secret manuscripts of Paracelsus. He spoke of mercury that could purify flesh, of elixirs that could arrest time. His words fell on a heart already primed by sorrow and ambition. Erzsébet listened, first with curiosity, then with a hunger that startled even herself. She funded Pietro's experiments, providing him a hidden laboratory in the castle's lower chambers. Night after night, the alchemist worked among bubbling retorts and copper alembics, while the Countess watched, her eyes reflecting the glow of the furnaces. He promised her that true youth required not merely herbs or metals, but the vital essence of life itself. The idea lodged in her mind like a thorn. The first disappearances seemed unremarkable. A scullery maid who slipped away to visit a lover and never returned. A kitchen boy lost in a winter storm. But when more servants vanished, always young women, always fair of skin, whispers began to drift through the villages. Travelers reported strange lights in the castle at midnight, muffled screams beneath the wail of the wind. Peasants crossing the frozen moat claimed to see crimson water seeping from the drainage grates. Janos, dutiful in his record-keeping, began to notice the gaps. Wages left unclaimed, names crossed from the roster without explanation. When he asked, the steward merely lowered his eyes and said, "The mistress handles these matters." Erzsébet herself seemed untouched by time. If anything, she grew more radiant. Her cheeks held a perpetual bloom. Her movements, the grace of a woman half her age. She attributed her appearance to herbs from Italy and long walks in the mountain air. But Janos sensed something more. One night, unable to sleep, he wandered the halls and heard faint music from the tower chamber. Through a narrow gap, he glimpsed the Countess standing before a silver basin, her white arms glistening in candlelight as Pietro murmured an incantation. The liquid in the basin shone darkly, and when she lifted her hands, the firelight caught droplets that gleamed not red, but almost black. Rumors reached Vienna. Complaints of missing daughters arrived at the royal court. But Erzsébet's rank and wealth shielded her. Local officials hesitated to challenge a woman who could ruin them with a letter. Meanwhile, her fascination with Pietro's alchemy deepened. She funded expeditions to acquire rare minerals, imported exotic spices and resins, and ordered elaborate glass vessels from Venice. The castle's lower halls filled with a pungent cocktail of incense, metallic vapors, and something less definable, a smell that clung to Janos's clothes long after he returned to his quarters. Yet, beneath the glittering surface of experiments and midnight rituals, a darker obsession took hold. Pietro whispered of an elixir of the moon, a distillation of vitality said to grant ageless beauty if prepared with the essence of the young. Whether he meant blood or something more mystical was unclear, but Erzsébet began selecting servants with an almost artistic eye, girls from distant villages whose disappearances would stir little alarm. They arrived timid and hopeful, lured by promises of good wages. Many were never seen again. Those who escaped spoke of rooms draped in black velvet, of strange symbols painted in ash, of screams that faded into silence. For Janos, the scribe who chronicled these events, the tension was unbearable. He had come to admire the Countess's intellect, even her charm, Yet he could not ignore the ledger of the lost. Each time he tried to confront her, her piercing green eyes silenced him. "You record history," she would say softly, "but history belongs to those who shape it. Remember that torn between duty and fear." Janos continued to write, his ink capturing a story that might never be believed. By the winter of 1610, the rumors grew too loud for the crown to ignore. King Matthias of Hungary ordered an investigation, dispatching Count Georgi Thurzo with soldiers to Szeged. Villagers watched the troop of torches snake up the mountain like a fiery serpent. Inside the castle, Erzsébet hosted a banquet as if nothing were amiss, her beauty undiminished, her smile serene. When Thurso arrived, he claimed to hear screams behind locked doors and to find girls chained in hidden chambers. Some accounts say he discovered Pietro's laboratory filled with vials of dark liquid and walls etched with alchemical symbols. Others insist the evidence was exaggerated to seize her fortune. Whatever the truth, the scene he reported to the king would cement Erzsébet's legend. Count Georgi Thurzo's soldiers fanned through the castle with drawn swords, their boots echoing off the stone corridors. Torches sputtered in the winter wind that slipped through the arrow slits. Janos, roused from uneasy sleep, trailed behind them, heart pounding. They passed rooms heavy with the scent of incense and something fouler, metallic and sour. At the door to the north tower, a soldier paused, his ear pressed to the iron. A muffled cry drifted through, thin as a ghost. When the door was forced open, a draft of frigid air swept the hall. Inside, several girls huddled together, their faces pale as the snow outside, wrists raw from ropes. The torchlight revealed dark stains on the flagstones, stains that no winter frost could explain away. The soldiers led the trembling captives to the great hall where Erzsébet stood waiting, dressed in a gown of midnight blue that shimmered like the night sky. Her hair was perfectly arranged, her expression calm, almost amused. "My Lord Thurzo," she said, voice smooth as polished glass, "you arrive unannounced." Thurzo's jaw tightened. "I arrive at the king's command." His gaze swept the room, taking in the velvet drapes, the elaborate silver candelabra, the silent Florentine alchemist Pietro, standing just behind the countess. Too many daughters of Hungary have vanished within these walls. Erzsébet's green eyes sparkled, but her words were cool. "The mountains are cruel in winter. Wolves take many," but Janos saw a flicker, just for an instant, of something like weariness, as if centuries of secrets pressed against her skin. Pietro stepped forward, his Italian accent soft as silk. "These are baseless accusations," he said, "born of envy and superstition. The Lady Bathory is a patron of the arts and of science. Is it now a crime to seek knowledge?" Thurso ignored him. He gestured, and the soldiers dragged forward a chest seized from Pietro's laboratory. They flung it open. Inside lay stoppered vials of crimson liquid, copper instruments etched with strange sigils, and a ledger filled with dates and names. Pages upon pages in Janos's own careful hand. The scribe felt the blood drain from his face. His meticulous records, meant only to preserve the truth, had become a weapon. Erzsébet's gaze met his, unreadable. Was it betrayal she saw, or inevitability? The trial that followed in the city of Pressburg drew crowds from across the kingdom. Pamphlets flew like autumn leaves, each more lurid than the last. Tales of baths of blood, of black masses, of bargains with the devil. Witnesses swore they had seen the countess strike servants, heard midnight screams, found bodies hidden in shallow graves. Some claimed hundreds of victims. Others whispered thousands. Whether these numbers were wild exaggerations or grim reality hardly mattered. The story of the Blood Countess had already escaped the courtroom and entered legend. Erzsébet herself was never formally convicted. As a noblewoman of immense rank, she could not be executed without a royal decree the Habsburgs feared to grant. Instead, she was condemned to perpetual confinement within her own castle. Pietro de Luca vanished during the chaos. Some said he fled to Venice. Others insisted he disappeared into the Carpathian forests, carrying secrets no one would ever uncover. Janos, compelled to testify, returned to Szeged weeks later under heavy guard. He found the fortress transformed. Iron bars sealed the windows of the highest tower. The great hall stood empty, its once blazing hearth cold and gray. At the summit of the tower, behind a brick doorway with only a slit for food and air, Erzsébet Bathory began her final chapter. Janos was permitted one brief audience to record her words for the king. He entered a narrow chamber where the countess sat on a simple wooden stool wrapped in a cloak of black wool. The famed beauty remained, though thinner now, her hair streaked with silver. Her eyes still blazed like emeralds in candlelight. "They fear what they cannot understand," she said softly. "Alchemy, medicine, the possibility that a woman might wield power equal to a man's. They twist it into horror so their own souls feel clean." She leaned closer, and Janos caught again that faint, unsettling perfume of roses and iron. "Write this, scribe. Time is the only true ruler. Kings, priests, even I will fade, but the hunger to conquer time will endure. They call it witchcraft. I call it the study of nature's deepest law." Janos's quill trembled. "Do you deny the charges, my lady?" A smile flickered across her lips, sad, defiant, and strangely kind. "What I deny or confess matters little. They have their story, and you will write it. But remember this, every age invents its monsters. Perhaps I am yours." He left her, with those words echoing in his mind. Winter deepened. Snow buried the castle in silence. From the village below, peasants saw only a single light burning in the tower window. Months passed, then years. Servants delivered food through the narrow slot, but rarely heard her voice. Some nights, travelers claimed they saw a pale figure at the slit, gazing at the stars as if communing with forces beyond mortal grasp. Others swore that on moonless nights the air around the tower smelled faintly of roses, as if her strange experiments lingered in the stone. 4 years later, on a frigid August morning in 1614, the guards found her body. She sat upright in her chair, hands folded in her lap, eyes open as if still watching the eternal night. There was no sign of struggle, no mark of violence, only the uncanny serenity of a woman who had defied time until time quietly claimed her. News of her death spread swiftly. The crown moved to seize her lands, and pamphleteers wasted no time embellishing her legend. Some portrayed her as a vampiric demon who bathed in the blood of virgins to preserve her youth. Others cast her as a tragic scientist, destroyed by superstition and politics. The peasants whispered prayers when passing the castle ruins, while traveling bards sang ballads of the beautiful countess who sought immortality and found only darkness. Janos Carrick, now gray-haired and weary, finished the final entry in his secret chronicle. He had written of battles and treaties, kings and plagues, but nothing haunted him like the memory of Erzsébet Bathory. "History will paint her as a monster," he wrote, "and perhaps that is not wholly false. Yet I cannot forget the intelligence in her eyes, the calm with which she met her fate. Was she a murderer, a martyr to knowledge, or merely the mirror of our own fears of time? Perhaps she was all 3 years later. Travelers spoke of strange occurrences around the abandoned fortress. Hunters claimed to see a tall woman in crimson walking the ramparts at twilight. Shepherds reported hearing faint music drifting from the empty halls. Alchemists from Vienna came seeking Pietro's hidden laboratory, convinced that fragments of his work remained sealed in the stone. None found it, but all agreed the place felt charged with an energy that defied explanation. Legends grew like vines over fact. Some said Ersebet's quest for eternal youth succeeded in a way no one understood, that her spirit roamed the earth, still searching for the final secret. Others believed the fortress itself was cursed, that anyone who lingered too long would dream of endless corridors and wake to find a single black rose on their pillow. Children dared one another to climb the cracked walls at night. Those who returned spoke of whispers in an unknown tongue and the sound of distant footsteps following them home. And yet, amid the Gothic shadows of rumor, a more human truth endured. Ersebet Bathory lived in a world where women of power were feared, where science and superstition intertwined, where the desire to conquer age was as old as the first wrinkle. Whether she truly crossed the line from experiment to atrocity, or whether history exaggerated her sins to cage an ambitious woman, will never be fully known. But the caution lingers like a chill wind through the Carpathians. The pursuit of eternal youth may demand a price that no mortal can pay. Janos's manuscript survived, hidden in a monastery library until rediscovered centuries later. Scholars still debate its accuracy, but one line at the end arrests every reader. I saw her eyes when she spoke of time, and I knew she was speaking not only of herself, but of us all. For in every heart lives the same fear, the fear that time will take everything, and the same temptation to defy it, whatever the cost.